So a great feature in GoGuardian that is really, really helpful in classrooms is what we call the scenes. Scenes are basically the creation of an allow or a block list that you can really hone in on to a much more granular level to the control of your students' experience while they're online in during the school day. So once you're logged into GoGuardian, you see your teacher screen right here. If you notice over to the left-hand side, you see something called scenes, and this is where you're allowed to create what they call an allowed websites list or a block websites list. And it works exactly as it is. If you created an allowed blocks websites list, obviously during that session, if the scene is active, the students can only go to those particular websites that you specifically allow. Obviously, like I said, it's good for a quiz or a test or an assignment, or if they're working on a project. Now, over here on the right-hand side, you have what's called a block websites list, which basically means everything is wide open, except for maybe if you want to block a whole domain, say Spotify or YouTube, or even the Snake game on Google. So when we hop in over here, and I'm going to create, I have one made for both here, but I'm going to come over here and create a list. And what you can call it, you can actually name it, and I'll call it test scene because I'm not feeling too creative right now, and maybe some sort of a description. And what you can do is you can color it if that's your jam. And what you can do is you can then go to next, and this is where the magic happens. So if you only want your students to maybe be allowed to go to, say, Google Classroom, you can see if you type in Google Classroom, a keyword, you're going to get obviously a whole bunch of results. So if I want them to go to Google Classroom, I can hit add. And then you can see, obviously, making sure that any sort of redirects inside of there, like Flipgrid or something like that would work. Maybe I want them to go to Flipgrid. You can see flipgrid.com. You might want to add a couple of the different little ones here, and you can see some of the other ones: Padlet, Edpuzzle, Quizzes, GimKit, things like that. So, once I have everything here created, maybe I will do. Maybe I'll do the Schenectady K-12 page. Obviously, that's not going to work. There we go. And now I've added the district's homepage onto my allow list. So you can also see there's a couple other things in here you can look at. You can set a tab list. So if you only want them to have one or two or three tabs open at once, that's a pretty neat feature. You can come up here to advanced filtering. Advanced filtering is if you're allowing something, you can then add an exception. So if you block all of YouTube, you can then allow a certain video to come through. So once I have that, what I'm going to do is come up here and I'm going to save my new test scene. And inside of a classroom, if I was to kind of randomly select, you can see when I'm setting up my class, I can always apply a certain scene to a class if I want to. And if I want to, I can put that test scene. So every time I launch this class right here, it will have that new test scene where they're only allowed to go to those certain websites. The block list works exactly the same as you think it does. You can then do, let's call it test block. We'll keep it the same color. Now, if you want to block things like Minecraft or YouTube or Spotify, or maybe you want to do all of YouTube, this is where you could do all of YouTube, except if you wanted to come over here to the exception, maybe you have a certain video that you want the students to watch, you could do an exception to that, and they'll still be able to get to that video, but not the rest of YouTube and all the other nonsense on there. So, not only that, but you can also auto open tabs if you want to. So if you want them to, every time the scene starts up, if you want them to open up 3 or 4 different tabs at once, this is where you would set that out. A lot to play with in here. I wanted to keep this kind of short, though. There'll be more to come. Hope that works, and let me know.